guys, my name is McKenna and welcome back to my channel. First of all, I have one thing to address. Yes, my eyes are mismatched. I got a new palette that I was messing around with and just did this to my face. And I like it, and if you don't, that doesn't matter. So today I'm going to be giving you my May wrap-up, which I'm going to alternately be titling the 1-star wrap-up month because I had quite a few 1-star reads this month that I want to share with you. The first book I completed this month was a reread of Lair of Dreams by Libba Bray, which I don't have a whole lot to say about. I obviously gave it 5 stars. This is the second book in my favorite series of all time, The Diviners by Libba Bray. If you don't know what The Diviners is about, it is about these kids that live in the 1920s that have superpowers and are trying to not get killed by ghosts, basically. And it's a really diverse cast that I really love all of the characters, genuinely. And it's so good, and please go read it if you have not already. The second book I read in May was A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab, which I gave 1 star. This was my first 1-star read of the month, and basically what happened is that I started reading this back when it was the group book for the Fantasy Adventure-a-thon because I wanted to complete the group book for that. And so I was trying to, I didn't complete it, I DNF'd it at 60%, and I redid it this time, and I only gave it 1 star because I didn't really like it. So that's basically what happened. If you don't know what it's basically about this guy that can travel through alternate reality Londons that have different color names that he assigns the colors to. And I basically didn't like it because nothing happened until like 80% of the way through, like right before the end it seemed the plot picked up, and I didn't really like any of the characters, to be completely honest with you. At least the story kind of wrapped up like it was a standalone as opposed to a series, so I don't have that anxiety over finishing it. The third book I read in May was The Disasters by M.K. England, which I gave 5 stars. The Disasters follows a group of diverse teens after they are cast out of the space academy and they are supposed to go back home, but as they are leaving the station there is this huge explosion and they kind of have to go off and kind of piece together what happened, now being like fugitives of this world and all the planets around it. Like I mentioned, The Disasters is very diverse, has a very diverse cast. The main character is Arabic and bisexual. His one love interest is black and I believe gay. It's not explicitly said on the page. His other love interest is a person of color. There was a, I believe, Bengali main character as well, and there was a trans main character. And I also did a makeup look inspired by this book, which I will link down below or up in the cards so that you can go watch that with all of my very concrete thoughts and more fleshed out thoughts on what I thought of this, but I do really recommend it if you want a lighter sci-fi book. The next book I read this month was The X Games by Jennifer A. Coles, which was a teen paperback romance, which was an interesting thing to read. It followed the main character Hayden as, she finishes first in the local snowboarding competition, and her ex-boyfriend, who she has a lot of chemistry with, says that if she were up against a guy, she wouldn't be able to do that. So it basically starts this whole bet between them on whether or not she could win against him, and all of their friends get involved as well. And it's just really fun. I gave it 2 stars just because it didn't have a whole lot of substance outside of the romance and the main plot line, which I didn't really expect from it, but I couldn't really give this book more than 2 or 3 stars just because of the content of it, but I did really enjoy my read of it. Then the next book I read in May was With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo, which I gave 5 stars. This is another book that I did a makeup look inspired by, which again I will leave linked down below for my full concrete thoughts. But this book was just so beautiful. I listened to it on audiobook and I listened to it super fast. I just loved it so much. But if you did not know, this book follows the main character, Imani, who is going into her senior year of high school after being pregnant her freshman year, and she is dealing with being a teen mother as well as trying to decide what to do in the next chapter of her life. As her love is cooking, when there is a culinary arts class offered her senior year, she takes it and she has a little bit of a struggle with it because her calling is just to be creative with food, and the chef, I believe his name is Chef Aiden, really wants her to follow the recipe and then go off to being creative. And on top of all this, there's kind of like another love interest, and the father of her child is involved as well, although they aren't in a relationship anymore, and they just have kind of a relationship between them and taking care of their child. It's just such a wonderful book, and I would highly recommend it. The next book I read this month was A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kimmerer, which I gave 3 stars. This book has been blowing up recently on BookTube and I believe like Bookstagram and all those type of social medias. And if you did not know, it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling where the main character has cerebral palsy, and I feel like there's not a whole lot you can say other than that doesn't give everything away. Basically, she is living in DC with her brother and her mother is dying of, I believe, cancer. I can't exactly remember because it's been a while, but then she witnesses a man trying to kidnap another woman on the street and jumps in to help, and the guy kidnaps her instead, and the guy ends up being, I believe, like the right-hand man to the king in this other world where the king is like the Beast from Beauty and the Beast and has to find his love to set the curse free. Basically, what I didn't like about this book was the main like romance between Wren and Harper. There didn't seem to be any chemistry like any time throughout the novel, and then they just kind of threw them together at the very end where she was supposed to be in love with him, but there was like a lot of chemistry between Harper and Gray, which I thought was kind of underdeveloped. I would wish to have seen more of their relationship as opposed to just their chemistry, because they did have a lot of chemistry together. I also think it is a very cliche thing to name the female villain Lilith. As devilish as she might be, I feel like it's just almost like you couldn't come up with anything else, but that's just a little bit of a gripe that I have with it. It's fine, it's whatever. Other than that, I just think I kind of had a few questions of the ability to switch between worlds and if these were the only 2 worlds, blah 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 blah, but that's something that I feel like we're gonna explore more in book 2, so I'm not too worried about it. So I gave it 3 stars. I would recommend it, but it wasn't my favorite. I've heard kind of bad reviews on the second one, so I'm interested to see. It doesn't come out until next year. And then in May, I read There's Something About Sweetie by Sandhya Menon, which is one of my favorite books, like, of all time. I read this as an e-arc last year in, like, December, and I absolutely loved it then, and I wanted to listen to it on audiobook when it came out this year, so that's exactly what I did. This is my pre-order of it. I just loved it so much. I love this book. If you did not know, There's Something About Sweetie follows 2 main characters, Sweetie and Ashish. Sweetie, who is a fat track star at her high school, and her mother has been holding her back from doing a lot of different things that she kind of wants to break out of in the Sassy Sweetie project. And Ashish, who has just been dumped by his longtime college girlfriend, and is kind of losing his mojo, in the 2 form a dating complex, almost agreement to try and each benefit their own selves, and it's super cute, and I love it so much. I love Sweetie as a character, I love Ashish as a character, and Then in May, I read Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, which I gave 4 stars. So this has actually an interesting story to it. So I ended up reading it a second time in June, so I'm not going to talk about that time. I'm just going to talk about it now. So basically, Red, White, and Royal Blue, if you somehow do not know, this is another one that has been like blowing up recently. It is about the son of the president falling in love with the Prince of Wales, and it's just super cute, and like I loved it so much. I read it in one day, and it's like a 14-hour audiobook, but I finished it all in one day. I completely devoured it. it was just so cute and I loved it so much. The reason that I loved it so much was more of the relationships and friendships formed, as well as the family relationships and those types of things, as opposed to the whole political arc, because I'm not a huge fan of political arcs in books. It's just not my thing. I kind of don't care a whole lot. But I did really like the relationships, as well as the like main couple relationship in this book. So that was a plus. The whole president's son thing and prince thing gave me a like Disney Channel movie vibe, which I absolutely loved. I felt like I was watching, albeit an older version, like a more rated R version of a Disney Channel movie, which was such a fun thing. It was almost nostalgic, even though I've never been in most of these situations and these characters are older than I am. It felt nostalgic, which was interesting and awesome. So I did really enjoy it, and I would really recommend it. And then I read Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alire-Sanz. I ended up giving this book 1 star. I didn't really enjoy it. I think my main gripe with it is that I didn't really care for either of the main characters, and this book is very character driven. There's almost no plot outside of the characters. I also found an issue with the huge time jump between summers. There was almost no context put into the in-between, and then all of a sudden it's just like, oh my goodness, like, ah! And it kind of took away from the story for me. I would have liked that in between that school year to have been a little more fleshed out, and I would have liked to see a little more development in their relationship overall, as opposed to just going romance. It wasn't for me. I think that it could be for you if you read it. I'm not really sure. I don't know your reading tastes, but I know that even the people that didn't really like this book liked Dante. They really loved Dante, and I didn't like Dante. It wasn't my favorite. I don't really see myself reading anything else from Benjamin Alire-Sanz in the future, but you never know. I'm kind of a masochist when it comes to reading. Even though I know a book that I'm not gonna like, I still read it anyway because I don't know why, and you'll find that out later in this wrap-up. And speaking of later in this wrap-up, the next book I read this month was After by Anna Todd, which I gave 1 star. I didn't personally have an issue with like the pacing of the book or anything. I just didn't like how much drama was in it, and I didn't like the main relationship. I didn't think Hardin was Sweeney at all. I thought a lot of the things that happened were problematic and they kind of went unchecked, and I know that's something that's been said a lot, but I don't really care. I will be that broken record that says like some of this shit was problematic, and I'm not saying people shouldn't read it. I'm saying that people shouldn't read it and think, oh, this is what a relationship looks like. I thought that kind of mostly Hardin was very manipulative. I think in the second book, which we'll talk about a little later, I think their relationship moved way too fast throughout this book. I was like, you just met him a few months ago, and obviously all of that is relative to who we're talking about, but you didn't know who his parents were and you're already moving in with him basically. It just rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't really like it. I was just kind of like, but why though? I didn't really like it. If you want to know what this is about, I'm gonna give a really shitty synopsis. Basically, it's about this chick that goes off to college and has her whole life like set, and basically throws most of it away for a guy with tattoos. I do want to talk about the fact that like you can obviously tell that this is a Wattpad fan fiction though. The explicit sex, them moving in together, her getting paid for her dream job as an intern, they had sex at her desk, he's the bad boy that likes books, and there are cliffhangers at the end of almost every chapter. I have written on Wattpad before. I know, like, you publish chapter to chapter, so you have to keep your readers interested somehow, so leaving a cliffhanger at the end of a chapter is something that happens a lot in Wattpad books, so that's a huge identifier if you're ever reading a book that was from Wattpad. But basically, I just gave it 1 star. I didn't really enjoy it. That's not to say that you aren't going to enjoy it. So, do I recommend it? If you think you'd like it, if you want to read it, like, I'm not stopping you, but I don't think I'd explicitly recommend it. The penultimate book I read this month was Cinder by Marissa Meyer, which I gave 3 stars. I had a huge issue getting into Cinder because I've tried again and again and again and again and again. That's an over-exaggeration, I've only tried like 3 times, but to get into this book, and I can't seem to do it, or I couldn't seem to do it, obviously. I finished it already. I don't know what it was about the beginning that I just didn't care about. I hadn't connected with the characters already, and though I still haven't really connected with the characters, I feel like that's going to come more in book 2, which I do plan to read sometime, I don't know when. But I did pretty much like the world of this book. I don't have anything like, oh, it was outstanding or like that to say, because I don't really know. I'm not impartial to this world, but I wouldn't mind it. I don't mind it. It's just kind of like, I almost just don't care that much. Basically that's what this is that I don't care that much. But, like, it was okay. I do want to read book 2. The other thing is that, like, the main plot twist that happened at the very end, I had predicted, like, very early on in the book, and it was just kind of underwhelming after I had predicted it, but, you know, there's that. If you somehow didn't know what Cinder was about, it's basically a Cinderella retelling in a cyborg, where Cinderella is a cyborg in a sci-fi world, and she's also a mechanic, and there's a prince that needs his something fixed, and she fixes it. It sounds almost like the beginning of a porno, but there's nothing explicit about it. And finally, I went back in for round 2 of After and read After We Collided by Anna Todd, which I also gave 1 star. These books are really easy to read just because they are not particularly rich in anything. There's just a lot of drama that I don't care about that much, and like some shenanigans. It's okay, it's kind of fun, it can be kind of fun at parts, but I just don't really care that much about anything that happens. So, that being said, I'm just gonna read what I wrote down here. I wanted some more of the explicit sex because I found those to be the best parts of the book. I didn't think anything else was particularly good about the book, and most of the sex scenes aren't great, but I just wanted a few of those like gem ones, you know? However, there was way too much unnecessary drama, and I didn't care about anything except for the few sex scenes that were actually kind of good. I do remember what happened at the very end of the book. I do remember some of the things that happened during this book. Do I care? No. Like I said previously, Tessa gets kind of manipulative in this book. I don't like them together. I think that, like, they could each do better in their own way. I don't think they're very suited for each other. And I have actually been spoiled for the end of the series, so I don't really care anymore. I just don't really care. So I'm not going to continue on. Hopefully. I say that, and then like in a few months. Honestly, I'm not even going to say I'm not going to finish this series. I probably am, just because I feel a weird sense of anxiety of not having it finished. But we will see, we will see. So that was my 1-star reads May wrap up. Let me know down in the comments below if you read any of these books, and if you've read any of these books, or if you agree with any of my opinions on these books. Please start a conversation, like leave a comment down below. I want to talk to you guys. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you sometime for a new one. Bye!